Hey everyone, this is Dave and Zach, and we are here today talking about how to approach a podcast to get the most content out as possible. So to dive right into it, I'm going to turn it over to Zach, who's going to talk a little bit about the basics, and we're going to get into it today because this is a really important topic to maximize the amount of time you're spending putting into a podcast.
Yeah, so first things first is I would say 99.9% of the podcasts are now video. I know 10 years ago it was mostly audio, so we're just going to be talking about video podcasts. So I want to start with that framework. So the first thing is really breaking it down into you have your long form piece of content, you have your medium form piece of content, and then you have your short form piece of content. Your long form piece of content is the exact length of the podcast, anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour long. And since it's a video podcast, it can go right onto YouTube, as well as it can go on other places like Spotify and some other places to really promote that long form piece of content. Now, the problem is if you're just promoting that long form piece of content, you're not Joe Rogan. A lot of people probably don't know you. And the chances of them watching a full 1 hour piece of your content is very slim the first few videos that you're doing. So what we recommend is doing them basically a medium form piece of content. What is that? It's anywhere from 2 minutes to 10 minutes pulled out of your long form piece of content. So let's just say you have an hour's long piece of content. Maybe you could get anywhere from 5 to 6 medium pieces of content out of that. And then last but not least would be your short form. So this is where you're pulling out the best juicy segments from your podcast, and those can be run on Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, and some other platforms to really get that mass exposure so people get to watch it real quickly. Then they're like, this is pretty good. Now they're going to watch the medium form, and now they're like, okay, now I can watch the full long form. Would you kind of agree with that, Dave?
Yeah, I would agree. I look at it as, when you're planning out your podcast, you have your centralized topic, and then in each one you have different subtopics that you want to talk about in your podcast. So I think it's super important to make sure that you're covering each of those smaller subtopics, so you have the shorter videos inside your longer videos. Because again, you're trying to maximize the amount that you're getting from this one podcast. Each of that hour or half hour that you're spending recording a podcast should result in 5 to 10 pieces of end content that you could put out there. And there you go. You got your week's worth of content for 30 minutes to an hour's worth of work now, inside of it.
The thing too is, and this is nothing new, right? This is nothing revolutionary. Whether you like the news, don't like the news, like talk shows, don't like talk shows, on normal television, they've been doing this for years. They have a 1 hour segment, then they break it down into medium form pieces of content, and now relatively in the past 4 years, now they're doing shorts, which is relatively new. But it really breaks it up, and what that does too is when you're speaking on a podcast, it allows you to speak more in like sound bites and more segments than as opposed to just drawing on for an hour about one topic, let's say. This allows you to break it up some more, and it creates it much more digestible. Now, the thing with shorts that I've seen people really mess up on is they'll just, put it into a software, kind of find themselves and say, oh, I'm just going to use this 1 minute part and call that my short. Why that's bad is shorts should really be designed as shorts. So yes, you can pull out a short piece of content. So for example, what I usually do when we're editing is I'll find maybe a 1 minute, 2 minute, or 3 minute piece of content and say that's going to be my short, but obviously you're not going to have a 3 minute short. So what do? I find the hook, I find the leading part after that, I find that main chunk, and then I try to find maybe an outro or something that just leaves the viewer hanging or just cuts it off real quick so that you get that full 100% retention. So that's just really important. That I just don't want people just cut out a minute segment, post it, and say that's my short. It's like, not exactly. You're not going to get the best bang for your buck on that one.
I agree with that, and sometimes you get lucky and you could find a short that does it, but a lot of times you're relying on the skill of the editor to turn something into something that works for social media, and it's going to create that viral loop. So in any event, that is how you should approach a podcast to get the most content as possible. We want you to maximize your time. We want you making those long form, short form, medium form pieces of content. And we want you to essentially scale your content this year on social media.